From a live bomb to a full bottle of wine, here are some of the weirdest things ever found inside animals. I've also noticed that most of you watching this aren't subscribed yet, so if you do like the video, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It's absolutely free and you can always change your mind later. And with that said, enjoy the video. Number 20. The porcupine fish. In 2017, a lemon shark in the Maldives was found dead with a porcupine fish in its mouth, in what would be a perfect illustration of how these fish put their defense mechanism to work. Apparently, the shark might have tried to gulp down the porcupine, which prompted the latter to quickly inflate. This, combined with the fish's sharp spines piercing the shark's mouth, led to the shark's suffocation. Number 19. A suit of armor. This shark probably didn't get the memo on how to use that suit of armor. In 1994, the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles County held an exhibition dubbed Sharks, Fact and Fantasy. This was to display some of the weirdest stuff that had been discovered in sharks in the 90s. Among these strange objects was a set of armor, complete with the enclosed helmet. Exactly how the shark downed the protective suit is still a mystery. Other items retrieved from sharks' bellies included a fur coat, a Florida license plate, and some jewelry. Number 18. Nails. Hooch, a dog living with his owner in Florida, wouldn't stop vomiting, so the owner did what you'd expect. Took him to the vet, and that's when things got a little dark. Turns out the hound had been munching on all kinds of leftover materials from a building project like screws, staple, and nails. The vet actually counted about 309 of these by the time he was done removing them. Thankfully though, Hooch carried on well with his life after the operation, and hopefully he didn't go after that stuff again. Number 17. A vibrator. In 2014, a Norwegian fisherman caught more than he expected. The 11-pound cod he had successfully fished out of the water had quite the lump on its belly, which prompted him to investigate. His first find was nothing really that unusual, just 2 undigested herrings that cod had feasted on a few moments before getting caught. But as the fisherman prodded further, he came out with a large orange adult toy. Of course, it was a big surprise for the 64-year-old who, despite being a fisherman for pretty much all of his adult life, had never encountered such a sight in his entire life. He speculated that the fish might have mistaken the adult toy for one of its bright-colored prey and simply swallowed it. Number 16. Rocks. Seems like rocks too can be quite delicious, at least going by one exotic frog over in Texas. In 2014, the frog's owner observed him gobbling up a few rocks in his enclosure. Surprised, the owner took the frog to a vet, where as it turned out, the amphibian had been eating rocks for some time. An x-ray showed well over 30 rocks in the frog's belly, although he seemed perfectly normal health-wise. Nevertheless, the frog underwent an operation, fully recovering from it a few days later. Number 15. A security guard's badge. A big catch is every fisherman's dream, but not being able to sell the same is a nightmare. Such was the situation faced by Arnold Constantino, a Filipino fisherman who caught a 440-pound grouper in 2017. As was tradition, he brought the fish to the market where it was to be sliced in preparation for selling. However, to everyone's horror, the grouper's stomach contained a shiny gold badge, something you'll see on a guard's uniform. This caused some serious hesitance among buyers. They were convinced that the grouper had devoured some unfortunate security guard. More than likely, though, some security guard just lost his badge and it decided to eat it. Nothing too bad. Number 14. A live bomb. Now that's pretty scary if you really think about it. In 2013, a fishmonger in China's Guangdong province was tearing through a squid when his knife struck a hard metallic object. This object turned out to be a bomb, and thanks to the fisherman's quick thinking, he saved a few lives, including his own. Identified only as Mr. Huang, he immediately called the police, who would later ascertain that the bomb was actually still live and could have gone off at any moment. Number 13. A golf ball. Gray whales feed by filtering, which leaves them vulnerable to ingesting items that aren't exactly beneficial. This includes stuff like plastics, especially in this age of rampant plastic pollution. This was apparent when one of these marine mammals washed up in the Seattle coast in 2012. Naturally, everybody was curious about the likely cause of the 37-foot beast, so researchers got to work immediately, examining the stomach contents. They made a few startling finds, including plastic, some woody debris, a flat spongy material, and of course a golf ball. Interestingly enough though, the whale's death remained a mystery. This is because none of the objects found were in large enough concentration to cause problems. Number 12. A human thumb. In 1992, a Wyoming fisherman caught a trout that turned out to have swallowed a human thumb. While shocking, the find turned out to be a bit of a happy event actually. Apparently, the thumb belonged to Robert Lindsay, a boating accident victim. Alongside the thumb, Robert had also lost the index and middle fingers, both of which had been found and reattached 6 months prior. In the accident, the then 32-year-old was trying to save his daughter's friend from drowning when the boat's propeller severed his digits. Not sure if it can be reattached, but it must be nice to have at least found it. Number 11. A human body. In February 2021, Andrew Hurd, a 69-year-old fisherman, seemingly disappeared into thin waters in Queensland, Australia. But there are some clues out there that help trace him down. His fishing dinghy, which had capsized by then, showed all signs of a crocodile attack, and the presence of the gigantic reptile at the scene made it even more plausible it had something to do with Mr. Andrews' disappearance. After some deliberations, the 14-foot-long croc was euthanized and cut open to reveal what everybody had been worried about. That being several human parts believed to be those of the fisherman. Number 10. A toy arrow. In August of 2009, Betty the Bull Terrier wandered into her owner's kid's playhouse and swallowed a 10-inch toy arrow, which was quite something considering she was just a small 8-month-old puppy at the time. The hound did seem pretty okay on the first day, but the owner, Emma Watson from Kent, soon suspected something was amiss. She was vomiting and stopped eating and pretty much kept to herself, a complete opposite of her bubbly nature. A vet's appointment would later reveal the arrow lodged between the dog's esophagus and small intestine. This was promptly followed by surgery, with the vets managing to successfully extract the plastic arrow and save the little pup. Number 9. 1,000 coins. For some reason, visitors at a pond in eastern Thailand thought it was a good idea to toss coins at a green sea turtle. According to them, the act ensured luck and longevity on their part. Unbeknownst to them, though, the coins had the exact opposite on the reptile. Turns out the turtle was swallowing these coins, and it took years before anybody even noticed this. Nicknamed Omsin, she had downed a record 1,000 coins when a Thai Navy personnel brought attention to her distress. A vet successfully extracted the coins, but the damage had already been done. Nickel toxicity had severely affected the turtle's immunity. She didn't wake up from a second operation. Number 8. An electric blanket. In 2006, a 12-foot Burmese python swallowed a blanket that its owner had put in its cage to keep the reptile warm. Knowing the obvious risk, the owner, Karo Beznozka, called in at the vets immediately to have the snake operated on. Thankfully, the surgery was indeed a success. An 8-inch incision, and 2 hours later, Houdini the python was all good to go. Number 7. A newspaper page. In 2016, researchers at the Natural History Museum in London made some interesting discoveries while working on restoring a 10-foot sunfish from the late 19th century. They actually found several objects that you wouldn't expect in any animal, including a broken chair and an 1883 newspaper cutting from the Sydney Morning Herald. Considering that the sunfish washed ashore at the Sydney Harbour in December of 1882, the cutting was certainly placed into the fish after it was dead. It's not clear, though, if that was the case with the broken chair. Number 6. A bottle of wine. In 1942, a group of French fishermen captured a blue shark, which turned out to have swallowed a bottle of Portuguese Madeira wine. Even more surprising was the fact that the bottle still held its contents despite the shark's stomach having one of the strongest acid concentrations. Number 5. Porcupine. Porcupines are tiny, but their prickly nature helps them stand up against even lions. But how well can they fare against the tiger shark, one of the most vicious shark species? Well, it's kinda hard to tell, actually, since the two don't casually cross paths all that much, which is why it was a bit of a surprise when porcupine remains were discovered inside a dead tiger shark along Bondi Beach in Australia. People suspected that the porcupine was already dead when it hit the ocean, but still, the spines were definitely something that the shark regretted shortly after downing the morsel. Number 4. An entire friggin' deer. One of the largest alligators in the world was captured in Alabama in 2014. 15 feet long and weighing just over 1,000 pounds, it was easily an apex predator in its ecosystem. Swallowing its victims whole didn't seem too much of a problem, at least going by its stomach contents. The star attraction of the gator's dissection was a 100-pound female deer that the taxidermist reckoned could have been at least 3 years old. Of course, the deer was in bad shape, but the body was largely intact with hooves even being noticeable. Other unfortunate occupants of the gator's tummy included 2 squirrels still spotting their fur. Number 3. An entire sea lion. The gator isn't the only animal that loves swallowing prey whole, apparently. In 2013, Dr. Antonella Preti, a shark scientist, dissected a 12-foot mako shark as part of a years-long effort to understand the apex predator's feeding habits. While she obviously expected to find prey remains, she wasn't quite ready for the 200-pound sea lion she bumped into. Apart from the missing flipper and the bite wounds, the sea lion was pretty much intact, indicating that it hadn't been eaten that long ago. Number 2. A rope. An ostrich at the Zoological Society of London had an appetite for unusual stuff, it seems. After the bird's sudden death in the 30s, researchers were curious about the cause of death, so they set out to investigate. His stomach turned out to have quite the assortment of random stuff that you wouldn't expect any animal to consume. Aside from a glove and a handkerchief, it contained a rope, staples, coins, hooks, tacks, and the object that killed it, a 4-inch nail. Number 1. A police whistle. Still on weird diets, Jumbo the elephant seemed to also have a penchant for eating weird stuff. Born in Sudan, the gigantic animal toured across North America as a circus performer. Being the first African elephant the Americans had seen at the time, his massive size was something of a legend. If you ever wondered how the word jumbo became part of the English vocabulary, you got this elephant to thank for that. Sadly though, Jumbo himself didn't live long enough, dying at just 24 years old, not because of the contents of his stomach, but he was hit by a train. Inside his stomach, though, the owner found police whistles, keys, English pennies, and screws.